What if you were suddenly unable to move, your breath shallow, with oxygen slowly abandoning your terrified, struggling body? Imagine being utterly powerless, confined, witnessing your own body turn against you as true fear takes hold. This visceral dread of being utterly trapped is precisely claustrophobia, the profound fear of confined spaces. This is not merely a transient discomfort from confined spaces. It represents a much deeper, pervasive psychological terror. This is a profound philosophical horror, a primal response hardwired into our deepest evolutionary fears. It touches upon the greatest human dread, the loss of autonomy and the stripping away of our will to act. Today, our examination will focus not on external threats, but on the profound terror of losing our very essence. This isn't the kind of terror born from fangs or claws. Rather, its source is something far more suffocating. Our monster is the environment itself, specifically 2 coffins made of rock and wood, known as the Descent and Buried. Let's perform the dissection. At first glance, the Descent 2005 and Buried 2010 appear disparate. One involves a group of women spelunking in an uncharted cave system, facing geology and mutated humanoids. The other features a man waking up in a wooden box with only a Zippo lighter and a mobile phone. Across such scenarios, one critical psychological premise consistently emerges. The immediate environment becomes the central antagonist. In Buried, Paul Conroy is held captive in Iraq, but his executioner is not a combatant. It is the absence of space and the compression of time. The coffin represents the ultimate psychological constraint. Similarly, in The Descent, long before the crawlers appear, the narrow cave system is already the trap. Within its claustrophobic confines, the women are already grappling with crushing rock and the suffocating terror of endless darkness. The Earth's initial collapse sealed their doom, trapping them in absolute darkness and immobilization, long before any monstrous threat appeared. We will use these 2 case studies to analyze the greater fear, the horror of immobilization and absolute darkness. Our survival mechanism is predicated on the capacity for fight or flight. Claustrophobia attacks this mechanism at its core. When Paul Conroy is tightly confined in his coffin, he can neither fight nor flee. He is forced to redirect the energy of action into the amplification of dread. This is the power of psychological constraint. The horror is not just that he will die, but that he must hear, feel, and know exactly how his oxygen is depleting, how every grain of sand is being poured. He watches, utterly powerless, as his own impending demise unfolds, unable to intervene or alter its course. This is the fear of being robbed of the will to act, a fear that runs deeper than physical pain. Darkness is not the enemy because it lacks light. It is the enemy because it lacks information. Our brain is evolutionarily hardwired to seek apophenia, the tendency to perceive patterns or connections in random data. When you are in the absolute darkness of a cave, the brain rushes to fill the void, generating threats where none exist. A rock morphs into a phantom face. Every water drip sounds like a sinister, looming breath. In The Descent, even before the creatures arrive, the malignant intelligence of the darkness itself is what shreds the women's nerves. This terrifying absence of concrete information about the unseen, unknowable threat is precisely what activates our deepest, primal fear. It is why many people don't fear the dark, but what they imagine is in the dark. This brilliantly explains the film's structure. It forces you to fear the darkness, before introducing the physical enemy. When the physical space collapses, mental order inevitably follows. The descent is a perfect case study in system breakdown. When trapped, the stress and fear are not just directed at the environment, but at one another. Distrust, secrets, and personal history erupt in the confined passages. Claustrophobia turns you into the worst version of yourself. The violence in the cave is not merely about survival, it is the physical release of psychological chaos. The profound claustrophobia, masterfully explored in films like The Descent and Buried, reveals how this psychological chaos manifests, teaches us a critical lesson. The fear does not lie in the rock face or the coffin lid. No, it resides in the terrifying internal space of absolute powerlessness, where we lose all capacity to act. It is precisely in this powerlessness that liberation can be found, by confronting and naming our deepest fears. Paul Conroy's endurance is not found in escaping the coffin, but in maintaining the will to communicate until his final breath. The courage in the descent is not found in fighting the creatures, but in the internal human struggle under the direst conditions. The fear is the confined space, but the will to resist is the lighter, flickering in the absolute dark. Following the fear of confined spaces and that flickering will, we've truly grasped the harrowing reality of being physically trapped. But what happens when a character is trapped, not in a cave or a coffin, but by the ghosts of their past, unresolved traumas, or the crushing burden of their own psychological guilt? Next week, we put the Babadook on the couch in our series, The Therapy Session.